Welcome to the Superhero Bibliophiles podcast. This is a companion to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast where we talk about comic books, graphic novels, all that fun stuff. And today I am joined by a returning guest, and that is Kaz Wheeler. Kaz, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the daytime here. My kids are at preschool, so I don't have to worry about any interruptions today, which is very nice.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that's the first time for one of our sessions, actually.
Yes, yeah, we've had you on this show once before, and we had you on Japan on Film as well, and both times we definitely had problems with my kids bursting in. So fortunately, unless something goes completely awry, that is not going to happen today. So unless my kids broke out of preschool or anything, we don't have to worry about it.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking, I think I've talked to you this year more than I have some of my closer friends.
You know, that's the funny thing about podcasting is, yeah, same thing. I mean, my best friend, I actually don't think I've talked to her in probably over a year, but I talk to other people here on the podcast a lot more frequently. But anyway, before we jump too much into today's topic, why don't you remind people a little bit about who you are, what you do, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name is Kaz Wheeler. I am the host of the Japanese pro wrestling podcast, Didn't Get All of It Japan, where we talk about all the latest news and results from the world of Japanese professional wrestling that you would possibly want, and some that you may not, depending on your taste in professional wrestling. I'll also new a bit of a new thing that's happened. We're also starting a second podcast uh, called Ultimo Dragon Ball. We're going to be rewatching the Dragon Ball Z Kai show, and so that's about to start up now. So by the time you hear this, that show should be up and running.
Okay. Yeah, especially because we're recording this in July, and I don't know when this episode will be coming out, but it'll probably be sometime in the fall at the earliest. So yeah, it
Yeah.
should definitely be out by that point. Interesting. I see you guys went with Kai instead of the original Dragon Ball Z. Is that just because you didn't want to have to sit through all the endless filler episodes of people
So
staring each other down for 20 minutes?
yeah, apparently so. So here's the thing. I was not a Dragon Ball kid. So I'm going in this mostly blind. I've
Oh,
seen bits and pieces of Dragon Ball here and there, but one of my co-hosts said, "Hey, would you want to rewatch this show and see what you think about it?" And so I started rewatching a couple episodes, and I was like, "Yeah, I think we could do something with this. This is kind of fun." But he specifically went with Kai because apparently it's a bit of an easier on ramp for people.
yeah.
So that's why I believe we're doing it that way. But yeah, so I'm excited about that show as well. I'm having fun with the little bit we've done so far, and hopefully people like enough to join us with it.
Yeah, yeah. I was a bit of a Dragon Ball kid. Like it was on it was on like syndication or something back when I was in
Hmm.
junior high school, and it was like Saturday mornings at like 6 o'clock in the morning. They had like two episodes back to back, um, but it was kind of airing in real time. So like it got to a point where they reached the end of the episodes that they had actually dubbed and translated, and then it just reset back to the beginning. And this happened like several
Hmm.
times because they only had a handful of episodes. But you
Right.
know, I glammed onto it at the time back when I was, 13, 14 years old. But looking back on it now, I tried rewatching it a few years ago, and I'm like, I'm gonna go with the original series because I think this was actually before Kai had come out. And I'm just like, oh my God, this drags so much for a show that I remember being so action packed as a kid. It really drags.
Hmm.
And then later I found out about Dragon Ball Z Kai, which, for anyone who doesn't know, apparently the manga and the anime were being produced kind of not quite simultaneously, but very close to it. And so they needed to generate more content so that Akira Toriyama, the writer and artist, could create more issues. So to do that, they would stretch out things for a lot longer than they needed to be stretched out for. They added in some filler content, some original storylines just for the TV show as a way to like kind of pad out the runtime. So when you look at the original Dragon Ball Z and you compare the episode count to like Dragon Ball Z Kai, very drastic differences. And I was surprised because I remember I think it was the Namek saga was just like unending. It just kept going on and on and on and on. And then watching it in Dragon Ball Z Kai, it's like, oh my God, this goes by really fast. It's really funny how different it is.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's what I've heard.
yeah. So if anyone has not watched Dragon Ball Z and they're interested in it, then I definitely recommend going with Kai instead of the original. Or also, I don't know if you ever seen the YouTube series Dragon Ball Z Abridged, but that does a surprisingly good job of condensing everything and giving you the whole story, but also having some fun with it at the same time. It's both a faithful, you know, condensation and also part parody of it as well. So it's a really interesting watch.
Right. Yeah, I know there's some plans to watch some other stuff, like for some like Patreon exclusive stuff and things we're going to do on the side as well. So I think that I remember that being on the list somewhere.
Okay, yeah, yeah. All right, definitely cool. I'll have to actually I'm actually gonna planning on maybe starting to watch that again because now my kids are getting to the age where they can start paying attention to TV shows a little bit more. So Dragon
Hmm.
Ball Z Kai might be one of those things I decide to introduce them to. I haven't completely decided yet, but I've got to actually get it all again. Um,
Right.
but anyway, so what kind of stuff are you kind of interested in lately? What's been grabbing your attention these days?
Most of my attention that isn't on podcasting lately has been on a new puppy, actually.
Hmm,
Just got a dog. It's a white lab
congratulations.
named Bandit. And he is either the sweetest, sleepiest dog you've ever seen or an absolute biting terror. And there's no in between. It is in that teething phase where it's either the best dog or the worst dog. And there's just no other way about it.
Is this I mean, first off, kudos on the name. Bandit is like the perfect name for a dog. But is this your first dog?
No, but the first one in a while.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've
Probably the
never
first one since I was a kid.
yeah, I've never had dogs. We had a cat briefly when I was a little kid, but my mom was always
Hmm.
not really big on pets, so we never had
But
so I
I
my
do have a cat.
okay. How do they
Yeah,
get how are they getting along with each other?
uh, decently. Very skittish the first few days, and then just slowly getting used to each other.
Well, it's better than,
No big incidents or anything.
that's good. That's good. All right. For my part, I mostly I've just been doing stuff for podcasts and just getting stuff ready for my classes. But I finished watching Ironheart though recently and really dug that a lot. Especially, I'm not sure if you've seen it at all yet. Um,
It's next on my watch list.
it's good. Did you saw Wakanda Forever though, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What did you think of Riri in that?
Um, uh, I mean, I liked her a lot. I thought obviously there was a lot more they could do with her, which is why I'm very excited for the show. But I thought they did a pretty good job of translating her from the comics.
Yeah, see, I'm not familiar with Riri in the comics, so I didn't have anything. I didn't
Okay.
have like any knowledge going into. I knew she existed, but I hadn't read anything with her, so I had like
Yeah.
um, no advanced knowledge or anything, or no preconceptions going into it. And the thing about her in Wakanda Forever is I really liked her. I really liked Dominique Thorne in the role. I really liked her interactions with Shuri. But as for that movie as a whole,
Hmm.
I felt like she was kind of out of place and she didn't really fit into the story they were trying to tell. And she just kind of felt tacked on.
Right.
So that was kind of a disappointment for me when I saw the movie because as much as I liked her, I really felt like she just didn't really belong in that movie. And then watching Ironheart, right from the first episode, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this makes so much more sense. Now I am really clued into her, and it's a great show. I thought they did a great job adapting the Hood, a character that I only ever really liked in the first his first appearance in the Brian K. Vaughan miniseries. I never liked him when
Hmm.
Bendis was using him in the Avengers books. But I really liked him in this, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a very interesting appearance we get in the final in well, two very interesting appearances we get. One fairly early on, and then another at the end of the series. And I'm not going to say anything more about that, but I'm just going to say I was
Hmm.
very happy with the way both those two characters were portrayed. and especially with the one who comes in the end, I absolutely loved the actor that they got to play that character. And that's all I'm going to say on it because I don't want to spoil anything for
Okay.
anyone,
Yeah.
even though this episode's probably coming out in like the fall and everyone's going to know all about it by then. I'm not going to spoil anything for now.
Right. Now, there's one question because it's
Yeah.
something that's kind of bothered me about the this end stage of the MCU we seem to be in. That they're building up all these characters, like Ironheart and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four and things. And I'm just worried about how much time we're actually going to get with any of these characters because it seems like your Doomsday and Secret War stuff is going to happen, and how much of that's just going to go away in a reboot. Like, does Riri survive a rebooting of this universe?
I mean, I don't know if we should put too much stock into the reboot rumors because it's all just internet speculation right now. And
Yeah,
even when they
yeah,
did Secret Wars in the comics, they didn't reboot everything. They just kind of
yeah.
merged things together and brought things more in
It's
line. Like they
streamlined it. Yeah,
right, yeah, yeah. So I wouldn't like that was the theory everybody had about Secret Wars in the comics too, that they're going to reboot everything now, and it was
yeah.
all going to be kind of like what the DC did with, but even DC's Crisis was not really so much a reboot. It was more just kind of like clearing the decks a little bit, trying to streamline some things and bring it all into one semi cohesive universe. But we could talk about that at another time. Um, but yeah, I think
We'll
Marvel
probably talk a
kind of
little bit about it in the show today, actually.
probably a little bit about it here, yeah, because one of those characters pops up in there. But yeah, there's not. I think that what we're gonna get in Secret Wars is by the end of Secret Wars, I think we're probably gonna get a Marvel universe that still more or less looks the same, but there's going to be
Hmm.
some things that have shifted. Like maybe the Fantastic Four have always been here. Maybe now we'll get the X-Men as part of it too. Maybe this will be kind of like a proper
Hmm.
introduction for them or something like that. And maybe we'll open the door for some recastings for like Iron Man or Captain America or any of the other actors who have
Right,
kind of retired from the series. That's kind of my theory. I don't think we're going to get a full-on reboot just yet. I don't think,
right.
and I
That
don't
makes
feel
sense.
like, yeah, and I guess my sense right now with everybody, with everything they've been doing with like Thunderbolts and Ironheart and all this other stuff is I don't feel they would be setting these things up as much if we were just going to go straight on reboot, if that was the plan. So I feel like
Right.
there is some sort of plan beyond this. So that tells me that it's not going to be a full on reboot.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
But that's just my theory. We'll
Yeah.
find out. Time will tell whether or not we're right about any of this stuff. Um, but anyway, today we are talking about Blackest Night, which is the DC comic event from 2009. The creators on this series were, I got it right up here. Here we go. Oh, I almost had it here. So Geoff Johns was the writer on it, and then Ivan Rice and Doug Mankey were the pencilers. Uh, Auclair Albert and Joe Prado, Rob Hunter, Julio Ferreira, and Christian Alami were the inkers. Nick J. Napolitano and Rob Lee were the letterers. And Alex Sinclair, Rod Reese, or Rod Rice maybe, and Randy Mayer were the colorists. And we also had cover art by Ivan Rice, Auclair Albert, and Alex Sinclair. Um, so this is obviously very connected to Geoff Johns's Green Lantern rebirth and bringing in Hal Jordan and all that kind of stuff. And that's probably a good place to start with this discussion is what's kind of like your history with this take on Green Lantern, Geoff Johns's run and all that kind of stuff.
So we talked a little bit on the Black Adam show about a little bit of my history of comics that I read a little bit when I was younger. But I had a big break from comics, probably throughout most of junior high through high school. I didn't really read a whole lot. And then I started hearing about, oh, this Green Lantern run is really good. And I never read a bunch of Green Lantern. So I thought, well, let me just check out this. I think the first couple trades of that run had come out. So I picked up the Green Lantern Rebirth trade. And I
Sorry to
was
interrupt, but
like,
I just want to jump
"Oh,
in
you're good."
just for context. So around junior
Yes.
high, high school, around what years was that in?
I graduated high school 2008.
Okay.
So
All right.
it's right. So it was really good timing because this is right before Blackest Night's going to happen.
Okay.
So there's all this hype coming, and I'm like, well, let me check this out and see what it's about. And I started reading the Green Lantern books. So I was like, I have some time on my hands. I'm curious what comics are like because I haven't read them in forever, and I kind of fell in love with it. I loved Geoff Johns' writing in this series. All the artists are tremendous. Ivan Rice is tremendous with his artistic style. I love it. But yeah, I fell in love with the book. The like I knew a little bit about Green Lantern. Like the stuff I knew about Green Lantern before was always weak to yellow. You know, needs a space cop, all that kind of stuff. But I never really had a deep dive in it. But then I started getting into deep dive, and I read all the way through everything that had come out at that point. Sinestro Corps, uh, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I basically threw myself all the way in once I started reading that because I was like, Geoff Johns is a I think he's probably at this point my favorite comic writer just because I love the Green Lantern run so much.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we have very different it's funny you got back into comics at a time when I was kind of pulling away from comics because
Gotcha.
um I graduated high school in 2002 and going to university um I didn't have a part-time job that first year in university, so my funds were vastly decreased my
Hmm.
expendable income for buying comics. So basically I had to give up a lot of comic buying at that point. And DC was the first thing to go because I've always traditionally been much more of a Marvel guy. And so like I dropped pretty much everything DC I was reading at the time, which was like the Superman books, the Batman books, and Young Justice. I think those are the kind of the big ones, in Justice League. I'd never been a Green Lantern guy though. Even like I came most of my introduction from Green Lantern came from uh first Wizard magazine, for anybody who remembers that. It's just like talk because they covered like they did little bits of information about all sorts
Hmm.
of comic characters. So I got little bits and pieces from different characters through Wizard. But most of my introduction to Green Lantern came from the JLA comic, the Justice League comic of the 90s, which was Grant Morrison was doing that. When I was reading it regularly, it was Mark Waid was doing that. So Kyle Rayner was always my Green Lantern. And the only real exposure I had to Hal in as far as the comics go was his appearance in Reign of the Supermen when Coast City was destroyed. So I
Hmm.
had no real attachment to him as a character. And I thought the whole Parallax thing with him becoming a villain, I thought that was actually kind of an interesting idea to kind of corrupt him and all that. And and I haven't read the full story, so I don't know how well it actually holds up in historically. But just the very idea of it about this hero who gets corrupted by this great tragedy, um, I thought that was very interesting, and I thought that was a very cool idea. And so when they undid all that, or kind of undid all that, or like explained it away with Rebirth, um, I didn't like that idea. So I avoided Rebirth for a very long time. I didn't read it until years after it was published. And then I finally read it, and you know, I liked it a lot. I thought it was a pretty decent story. I didn't come away with like an abiding love of Hal Jordan or anything like that, but I thought it was a good story. I thought Johns found a good way to kind of explain everything away and to kind of massage the the rough patches off. But I haven't read all of his Green Lantern stuff. I read Rebirth, and I think I read the first trade
Hmm.
after that, which I believe was called No Fear or something like that. And
That sounds right. Yeah.
yeah, and that first trade, it didn't set my world on fire, so I never really pursued anything beyond that. Although I did pick up the Blackest Night trade a while back, and I did read that just because it was on sale in some DC Comixology event sale. So I picked it up through that.
Hmm.
Um and my biggest thing going into this is just I felt like I didn't have enough context to really kind of enjoy this event the first time I read it, and also the second
Gotcha.
time I read it now, because it is so rooted in what Johns has been doing up until that point. So if you've just
Yes.
read Rebirth and then you jump right into this, there's a lot of stuff you're just going to be like, who are all these different lanterns? What's with all the different colors and all this kind of stuff? And so all of that kind of stuff felt. And I knew the Batman stuff, fortunately, from the Batman RAP stuff because I love Grant Morrison's Batman
Hmm.
run. But Blackest Night itself, which is why I feel like, because DC now has been putting out these kind of like, these, I don't know what to call them, like the essential editions, like these, these digest things or something like that, and
Yes.
of like these really popular stories, like these iconic stories. And Blackest Night, I believe, is one of them, which I feel like it's not the best thing to put out in that kind of format because I feel like most people who have no connection to what Johns was doing before this are going to feel kind of lost if they read this event.
Yeah, I would, because I had rebought the trade just for this because I hadn't read it in a while, and I forgot how much stuff was not in the mainline books. I forgot how much stuff was in the side issue stuff because there was things that was like, I know this happens, but I haven't seen it yet. And I was like, man, that's a big thing to not have in your mainline uh printing of this. And I know there's the big omnibus and stuff that has everything, but just especially just to have a contained book where there are things that almost aren't like essential, but man, do they color the story a lot more, and they're just not there.
Yeah, DC does this thing with their trades, which really annoys me because I felt this especially with the death metal trade. I'm not sure if you read the death metal event.
Uh, no, death metal I haven't gotten to yet. No,
Okay, so it's the way they
I know what happens,
constructed.
but I haven't read it
Yeah.
yet. Yeah.
So the way they construct, they have three trades, or maybe four trades. Like there's the death metal trade, there's Tales of the Dark Multiverse, and there's another trade too. I can't forget. I'm blanking on the name of it. Um, I think there are two Tales of the Dark Multiverse trades, and the Tales of the Dark Multiverse, mostly it's just side stories. So I'm like, okay, fine, that's fine. But these other two death metal trades, their build is like separate things. And you feel
Hmm.
like if you're getting the death metal trade, you should be able to get the whole story there. But there's very crucial things that happen in one of these other trades. And as I'm reading the death, because I figured I'll read the whole death metal trade first, and then I'll read the ancillary titles. And I figured that would be a good way to get the story and fill in the gaps, but the gaps are massive. So much so that I was
Hmm.
completely lost. And if my buddy Anthony Desiato is listening, he commented when I mentioned this. He's like it doesn't make sense no matter what way you read it. So maybe that's a problem too. But it drove me nuts because I'm like, okay, I have no idea what is happening here. I have no idea how these characters suddenly pop up out of nowhere, and it's just it. And this drives me crazy because DC does this a lot with their trades. Is they publish them as if they are these completely separate things when they're not, and they are
Hmm.
interlinked together, and they need someone who is better coordinating these things and saying like, okay, if you want to publish the entire crossover across four books, fine, I'll buy all four books, but assemble them in the story order so I can at least follow the
Right.
story. But that just made me it pissed me off so much that I don't even think I finished reading all of that event. But now I'm going back through and I found reading lists that kind of assemble things together and put it in a logical way. And I'm eventually going to get back to it. But apparently, a lot of this event is contingent on having read Scott Snyder's Justice League, which I had not read all the way through. And I wish someone had told me that before. And it drives me nuts when they do this and they don't assemble these things in the proper reading order. Because the whole point of waiting for the trade is so that you don't have to go digging around for reading lists. You got the whole thing right there in one set.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that surprised me a little bit because, like I said, I think this one it's Blackest Night proper. I think it's Tales from the Black Lantern Corps, and then I forget what the third one is because it's in three different parts if
Mm.
I remember correctly.
Have you read the omnibus version?
Yeah, I mean, I read everything when they all got traded out initially, and I've read through the omnibus as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the DC Essential edition of the Blackest Night Saga trade, And this one,
Yeah, I think that's the one I've got,
so yeah,
right? Which
this
is Black
mostly
Lantern
gives,
Saga.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
hold on, zoom in here on the screen here. So it's Green Lantern 43, Blackest Night 0 to 8, Blackest Night Director's Cut, and Untold Tales of the Blackest Night #1 is what it contains. So that's everything it
Untold
contains.
Tales, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not the whole
Yeah.
thing, I don't think, right? So
No, no, that's not. No, it's not even close. I don't think because
yeah,
that didn't have any Tales stuff in it.
no, yeah. So it was just and I saw now, like I'm just looking through. There's apparently like a Blackest Night Batman thing, and it made me
Hmm.
realize because they mentioned Batman a lot in
Hmm.
this Blackest Night saga trade, but you don't really see him at all. And then at
But you
the
see
end
him
they get
once, kind of. Yeah.
yeah, and then they get to the end and they're like, "Do you really think that was Bruce?" It's like, "No, it wasn't Bruce." I'm just like, "Wait, where did he pop up? I don't did I miss something? Was I
Yeah.
drunk when I read this or what?"
Yeah. Because there were a few scenes in there, like I said, because I've seen all of the trades and all the stuff surrounding it. There's because there's one moment that I was expecting because I remember the page specifically, and there's I want to say it might be a splash, but I don't remember 100%. It's just this huge image of the Black Lantern Spectre.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Spectre gets turned into a Black Lantern, and it's not in the version that I have. And I was like, well, did that happen in one of the side things? And I guess it must have, because it's not in the actual mainline books at all. And that's one of those big parts of that, is pretty essential to the rebirth story.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't get it if you're reading just this one trade that is supposed to be the event.
Right. I mean, it's literally billed as the essential edition here.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do see one in my version at least. There is a Spectre one, this giant splash page where he says, "I want Hal Jordan back." So it does have
Yes.
that in my version.
Okay. Yeah. Yours has, I think, two issues that mine doesn't. Yeah. So that's
Okay.
yeah. So I think that might be in the Untold one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that's annoying when they do that.
Yeah.
um,
But that's not to say I don't enjoy because I love this story. And now, if I'm going by just what I've read, the Blackest Night 0 through 8, yeah, like you said, it's a little janky. There's some stuff that just feels missing, but the event itself, and the comics surrounding it, I love.
mhm. Yeah, as a story itself, like trying to putting aside all the jankiness and the weird reading order and how stuff just kind of characters just suddenly appear and disappear and then you don't really know what's going on in some cases. Um Mostly I enjoyed this reread. And I think I understood it more this time. The first time I read it, and I think that was just a bare bones version I had that first time, probably the one that you're talking about. It didn't
Yeah.
speak much to me that first time. And I think I just kind of like breezed through it and just threw it aside after that. Just like, whatever, I'll read something else now. But this time I got a little bit more invested in it. I really thought, well, actually, before we do that, let's pause and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about this. Blast off into a new universe with Corsairs, a new sci-fi space opera serial by me, Percival Constantine. In these adventures, join the crew of the Corsair, a group of intergalactic mercenaries, as they struggle to survive in the depths of corporate-controlled space. If you're a fan of Firefly, Cowboy Bebop, or Guardians of the Galaxy, then you're going to love Corsairs. Subscribers to my Patreon get 2 new episodes a week, while free members get 1 new episode a week starting in December. Patreon offers new subscribers a 7-day free trial, but I'm also throwing in another perk. If you sign up with the coupon code SCP, you'll get 90% off your first month. So visit patreon.com/Percival Constantine and join in the adventures. We all love superhero movies and TV shows, but what about the comics that inspired them? Marvel, DC, Image, and more have provided the template for the movies and shows we all enjoy watching, and it's important to honor that tradition by buying and reading comic books. Superhero Cinephiles is proud to be an affiliate of mycomicshop.com. It began as a small mail-order business operated by junior high school student Buddy Saunders all the way back in 1960, and has been operating on the internet since 1997. My Comic Shop has new releases, value packs, back issues, trade paperbacks, comic art,
regular auctions, and a whole lot more, including 35% discounts on pre-orders. You can also sell your own comics or utilize their consignment services. You can even create your own want list of comics you're searching for. To get started, check out our affiliate link in the show notes or on the superherocinephiles.com homepage.
And we are back, still talking about Blackest Night. So we took the break, I was about to start talking about one of the things that really impressed me. And I think that this story, at least the version I have, it hits the ground running with the Blackest Night prologue, which is titled Tale of the Black Lantern. And this is all
Mhm.
about the Black Hand character, who is a character I have no attachment to in the comics. I don't think I've ever I know I've never read anything with him before this. I don't even think I've ever even heard of this character before. So this was my first introduction to this character. And I thought Johns did a really good job of laying out his background and kind of setting the stage for
Mhm.
what kind of person he is. I mean, this story was legitimately creepy, and it really kind of got my hairs
Yes.
on end when I was reading it.
Yeah, you know when they have the bad guy lick a skull on the second page of the book, you're in for something.
Mhm. Yeah, but and this gave me a new understanding for him because it does kind of give, this is what I like. This is what I wish there was a little bit more of, especially when you get into some of the different colored lanterns and all that kind of stuff, is we get a bit more context for
Yeah.
who this guy is and what he's doing. Whereas when we get to all the different lanterns, mostly I was going with like bits and pieces of half remembered stuff I'd read in different spots online. But this,
Hmm.
laying out Black Hand's origin and kind of what he's been up to and everything, I thought this really helped things out a lot. It helped me understand what he's doing and where he's coming from.
Yeah. And that's one thing, if you have the side stories, if you have, some of the backstory stuff from, I mean, some of this stuff goes back to, I mean, especially once you get deeper into the book, some of the stuff goes back to even the first Crisis on Infinite Earths. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's dense if you really, if like, especially if you know your DC history. I mean, there's so much stuff in it that if you've never read it, you're just like, I guess that means something, but I don't really know it. So it is kind of interesting. It is like I wish there had been a little bit more. Hey, this is where this is from. A little, but like how Marvel. I don't know if they still do it as much, but used to do the little bubbles. If you want more information on this, go to this issue from
Oh
1992 or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
kind of like
The
that.
footnotes. Yeah. Marvel has started doing those
Yes,
again lately. I think DC
have
has
they?
started
Okay.
doing them as well, yeah. But yeah, there was a time period in the early 2000s especially when that fell out of favor. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know what DC was. And I remember Marvel at one point they started publishing like a bibliography page or a works cited page or something like that at the back of comics, where they would
Okay.
have like references to stuff, and they'd say like, if you want this, go read this, go with blah 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 blah. Um, I don't know if DC had done that too, but I have noticed in recent years some of the stuff I've read, especially in collections, like they will reference specific collections.
Hmm.
Like it won't be go
Gotcha.
find numbers whatever to whatever, but it was like go read this collection or something like that.
Yeah. See, I love that. Yeah. Tell me where I can find more information about this
Yeah.
stuff. I love that.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of that stuff here,
No.
but yeah, some things I did like, and I did pick up on some stuff, and I like that this gave Johns a chance to kind of reset the board and kind of fix what he might have believed were some mistakes with some character deaths.
Hmm.
Even some that he may have killed himself or he may have had a hand in killing himself.
Right.
So I did like that idea of just kind of like, setting things up and this idea about, resurrection and all that kind of thing. So I thought there were some interesting ideas that they were playing with, and it gave them a nice avenue to push things in new directions.
Hmm. And I'll tell you the thing that sold me on it, because like I said, the Black Hand stuff was great. And then once we move into the actual story itself, I was sold completely very quickly when one of the first Black Lanterns we see is the elongated man
Mm.
and his wife. Because because like I said, whenever I got back into the comics, I started reading the Green Lantern stuff, and then I went back and started reading like all the big events that people said this is the stuff you have to read, and that included Identity Crisis, which some people would prefer to forget. Uh, but I read it and was, and it's not the best book in the world, but I do love the Elongated Man, and he's a great character. And for that to be the first Black Lanterns you see, and just this horrifying, stretched out corpse. I mean, I was like, oh, they're going, not only are they going deep into this, they're gonna make you suffer while you're watching or while you're reading this book. If
Mhm.
you love these characters, you're going to suffer along with your heroes in this book.
Yeah, the so Identity Crisis. I just want a brief little thing on that. I had avoided that book for the longest time, and I finally read it about a year ago. And it's such a weird book because in so many ways it is so well written and it does such a good job
Yes,
with the characters, but then they're just these
and then it takes a
random,
hard left, and you're like, why would
yeah,
you do that?
yeah, exactly, yeah. And it's just like it was whiplash inducing trying to go through that book because I'm
Yes,
just like, I like so much of what you're doing, but the stuff that you're doing
Mhm.
bad is egregiously bad, and it makes me want to throw this book into the fire.
Yes, very much so.
So yeah, that drove me nuts about that. But yeah, but to your point, like the elongated man in this, like I thought, yeah, very, I feel like Johns might have missed a boat because I think he could have had a very good career as a horror writer as well, because there's some
Oh,
pretty
absolutely.
horrifying scenes in this.
Yeah. Oh, listen, if you told me that they were just going to hand Geoff Johns a horror book, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. He's proven he can do that.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because I mean,
because
the
this.
other,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just gonna piggyback off of you. You continue your thought.
I was going to say the other one that is like just terrifying is when you get the Black Lantern Firestorm, and he's chasing after the current Firestorm, and he turns the current Firestorm's girlfriend into salt, and she just disintegrates, and you're like, oh, so she's dead, and this Firestorm is terrifying because he can now just do whatever with absolutely no moral compass at all.
I'm glad you mentioned Firestorm because I was going to bring that up too, and in two ways. First off, I co-sign everything you said. I thought that he made Ronnie absolutely terrifying in those scenes. Um, but also, it's just like how much in such a short amount of time he managed to get me invested in Jason and Jen's relationship.
Hmm.
And I was not expecting that because I have no attachment to Firestorm. The only thing I really know of Firestorm is from when he appeared on The Flash. And
Hmm.
then there was a different version on Legend of Tomorrow. But as far as the
Yeah.
Ronnie Raymond version, the only one I really know is from The Flash. And just like, so I have no familiarity with the character. I've never read any comics with Firestorm as like a major character in it. And
Hmm.
just like that, setting up that relationship between Jason and Jen, I thought, and he did a good job of putting me in that position because thinking about that and thinking about where they were coming from. I mean, I love my wife, but I would not want her in my head 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
But having to do that, and we're married, right? We have two kids, so we're committed to each
Hmm.
other already. But having to do that with when you're in college and your girlfriend is barely out of high school, and you are having that forced into that kind of an intimate arrangement, that would seriously fuck you up if you're in that situation. As when you're
Hmm.
that young, to have that close, that much of an intimate connection to your significant other,
Hmm.
and especially because they're approaching it from two different ways, right? She's approaching it from like, well, look at how connected we are, look at how in sync we are. Obviously, I want us to get married and have kids, and yeah, obviously, when you're in a relationship, some part of you is hoping that's what it'll eventually lead to, but
Right.
to have those things put up on display, you don't tell the other person that stuff right away, even if it's what you hope, right? You're not going to talk about that stuff right away because that's coming on way too strong too early. And for that to be something that she cannot hide, and then he just experiences that, and he's like, I don't know how to react to this. I felt so much for them in those moments. I thought that was a really good way of illustrating that difficulty of how close is too close, how early in a relationship.
Yes. Yeah, much like you, I didn't have a lot of connection to Firestorm before this book, but the way he portrayed both versions of Firestorm kind of sold me on it. Where I started reading that book that once they, uh, I think post Brightest Day when they put it out, I was like, okay, I want to read more Firestorm. This sold me on that character,
Now, what do you think of the whole?
and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying I can't say that the book continued it is because it wasn't Johns writing that version of Firestorm afterwards. So I can't say it kept up that level. But for the first couple, at least for the first few issues, I did enjoy it, but it did kind of fall off. Like a lot of stuff did post Brightest Day.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, the whole multicolored lantern core thing, and I think this
Mhm.
kind of started off with, if my understanding is correct, this kind of started off with Sinestro Core, and it just kind of grew from
Yes.
there. Am I correct with that?
Uh, so technically, so if you go technically by the lore, the Reds kind of exist first. There's a whole thing with Atrocitus being the one that crashed Avensur's ship. So technically, the Reds are first, but yeah, as far as what most people would have ever read, yes, the Sinestro Corps is the second one that we meet. Yeah.
All right. So, what do you feel about all the different multicolored lantern cores?
Uh, I kind of I enjoy it, but I mean, I guess the thing is, I didn't know anything other than that because I hadn't read Green Lantern before then. So my introduction to Green Lantern is that this just exists, that we're being introduced to this. I don't know anything other than this there being these different Lantern cores, and I thought they did a really good job through like from Rebirth into Blackest Night, setting all these cores up, and you understand who what those emotional spectrums cause these lanterns to do. And I think all that gets set up really well throughout the entire Johns run. So I always loved it. I may or may not have an entire set of the lantern rings somewhere around here. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it personally.
Okay. See, my only introduction, my only experience is basically through this comic. So for me, it's just
Mm,
I don't really get the whole spectrum idea. So I feel very disconnected from that idea of it. So when
yeah,
everybody gets
I,
their own, like when everyone else becomes like a different color lantern, like when Flash becomes a blue
mhm.
lantern and so on and so or and Mara becomes a red lantern, I couldn't really latch on to that aspect of it. And I felt like other than Luther, because Luther I think was the one that it made most sense in the text, where it felt like it fit the most. But even so, the whole
I thought
spectrum
him,
thing.
yeah, I thought him and Scarecrow with Fear. Yeah,
Yeah, Scarecrow with Fear. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, absolutely. But everyone else, it just felt like I don't really understand what this concept is really adding to make all these existing characters different colored lanterns.
yeah, and that is another thing where I think if any of the trades for this had just like a one issue, like a zero issue where it's like, hey, this is what these cores are about. I
Mhm.
think that makes a huge difference. Like, hey, this is what the Red Lanterns, they're all about rage and getting revenge on who wronged them in life and all that kind of stuff. Like just a little bit of that I think would have gone a long way.
Mhm. Um, Also, one of the things that surprised me reading, like, I get it's a Green Lantern story and all that,
Mhm.
but this is such a sprawling story that I felt that me, first off, me being a Superman fan, and then also, just because of the place Superman occupies in the DC universe, I was kind of surprised at how little Superman we actually get in this story.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. He plays a bigger part in Sinestro Corps War. Uh,
Okay.
him and Superboy Prime, one of my personal favorites. Uh, yeah, they play a big part in Sinestro Corps. Or yeah, not so much in Blackest Night. Except he does have two really big moments in near the end of it, where the when he first becomes a Black Lantern, then a White Lantern. They're
Mhm.
very cool. That's one thing I do love about this. There's so many great splash pages in this book.
Oh, the
I
art
mean,
is
there are
beautiful.
a
Yeah.
ton. Oh, it's amazing. Like there's like at least once every issue, you're like, oh, I could put that on my wall and I'd be perfectly happy with that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's this one I'm looking at right now. I just pulled up. It's all these different lanterns with Guy Gardner of all people leading the charge. And I don't even care much about Guy Gardner, but that's a good looking image.
Now, I'll tell you this: if you were to ever go back and read the entire Johns run, you'll love Guy Gardner. If you
Okay.
don't love like Guy Gardner, you will love Guy Gardner.
Yeah, I'm planning to. It's something that's on my list because it's something I've been meaning to do. I've been hearing about this run for years, so I do want to know more about it. I do want to see what it is I've been missing all these years with it. Um, yeah, that's one of the things about this. Like, my God, this comic is just so pretty. It is so pretty.
Hmm.
It is
Yeah,
very well
Ivan
drawn.
Rice is tremendous.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. Those are some of the biggest things that jumped out to me. Are there anything other parts that you especially want to talk about with Blackest Night?
Yeah, there's a yeah. Let me go through my notes here. There's a couple that uh, where is that at? Oh yeah, one of the things that this popped in my head. It's funny because I am shocked I didn't think of it the first time I read it, but this time, for whatever reason, in my head, I thought this is basically DC Pet Cemetery.
Yeah.
uh, it turns out dead maybe is better because if they're not dead, they're terrifying.
No, yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a good point. And, I will piggyback off that and just say like when they got to the end of this and they're trying to explain away all these resurrections of the past, 20 years or so, and just saying like you're like, well, that was all because of Necron and everything, but
mhm.
now dead is actually dead. When I read that, I'm like, motherfucker, come on.
Right. Like, oh, that'll last for how long?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's only one person that's ever stayed dead, and that's Uncle Ben.
Hmm. Yeah, it used to be Uncle Ben and Bucky, and then they brought Bucky back.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And well, it used to be Uncle
And
Ben, Bucky, and Thunderbird, and they brought
yeah.
back Bucky, and then they brought back Thunderbird. The
Mhm.
original Gwen, I guess you could make a case for her clones and stuff like that, but for the most part, the original Gwen Stacy has stayed dead, although she's come back in
Listen,
other forms.
I'll always make an exception for clones. I love me a spider clone.
Right.
Uh, give me a Ben Riley all day.
Oh, I
Uh,
love Ben Riley. Like I will never say a bad thing about Ben Riley other than what they've been
it's
doing to him
funny.
lately.
I feel like the Ben Riley uh, fans have come out a little more lately with the Spider-Verse movies, kind of giving us a little crack there to be like,
Mhm.
hey, Ben Riley is actually cool. Just because the Clone Saga kind of sucked doesn't mean Ben does.
It's funny because even at the time, you go back at the time, like a lot of people were saying, I actually really like Ben. I just hate this story.
Mhm.
But it
Yeah.
was Marvel took the wrong lesson. They're just like, no, everybody hates everything about the Clone Saga. We got to erase all of it. It's like, no, people actually like Ben Riley a lot.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that was a bizarre. I got a Scarlet Spider plastic figurine here that I got. Probably
Yeah,
thanks to the Spider-Verse movie. Yeah.
I've got a one of those little metal it looks like a comic book cover, but it's a little metal tin thing. It's the Scarlet Spider on my
Oh,
wall over
nice.
here. Yeah. But yeah, let's see what else I have on here. Yeah, like you said, Necron. They're them kind of rewriting death, Barry's death in the first Crisis on Infinite Earths being the beginning of all of the deaths that Necron was responsible for. And because I think Barry had only been back in this book, I think canonically a couple months at this
Mhm.
point. So he, I think the line is, his death was first, and your rebirth is the last. So basically,
Yeah,
Barry,
that's ringing a bell. Yeah.
yeah. So the story basically begins with Barry's death in Crisis on Infinite Earths and ends in Blackest Night, which is I think it was a 23-year story essentially they're telling,
Hmm.
which I love that kind of stuff. Like connect me to your bigger universe. Like I love that.
Yeah, I just wish they
And
the
that's that.
connection the connection was a little bit easier for people who haven't been
Yes.
reading for 23 years could understand.
Yeah. Because all like with Green Lantern and Hal. Like Hal was my Green Lantern because that's the first one I'd read. Barry was my Flash, but Barry hadn't existed for 23 years, so everybody else was like, well, where'd Wally go? Why isn't Wally the guy
Hmm.
anymore? And I was like, I only know Barry. I don't really know Wally because during that time I wasn't reading.
Right.
So it's interesting that most people my age, Wally is kind of their Flash, but for me, because I started reading at a different period, I'm a Barry guy.
Yeah, it is always interesting to look at that. I mean, you go back further, there are people who, Jay and Alan were there in their first Flash and Green Lantern. So, um, but even now, like I remember when Neil Adams was doing an interview and he was talking about Green Lantern, and he said one of the mistakes that the movie made was they focused on Hal Jordan. And he's like, but at that time, like most people, they would have grown up with John Stewart as their Green Lantern from the
Hmm.
from the Justice League animated series. And I never thought about that. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh my God, he's right.
yeah, and that's it. Because I know I've always heard it's a great series to watch. I've never watched the Justice League cartoons.
Oh, it's really
I've never
good. Yeah.
seen them. I know I need to, but yeah, I remember hearing that. It's like, who's the white guy that's the Green Lantern? Why isn't it John Stewart?
Yeah.
And I was like, and because this was at the time when I was, you know, Blackest Night had happened. I was a Hal guy. I was like, why wouldn't it be Hal? But for most people, it was like, why isn't it John Stewart? And it turns out they were right because that movie sucked.
Yeah, I was
I've never been more disappointed in a movie in my life.
I mean, even me being more of a Kyle guy, like I was still not surprised when they went with Hal, just because
Mhm.
he's all in the time I've been reading comics, Hal has always been assumed to be like the default Green Lantern. So yeah,
Right.
when people are like, why isn't it John Stewart? That actually, like when I said when Neil Adams said it, I'm just like, oh wait, he's actually right. That actually does make a lot more sense.
Hmm.
Um,
And that's a
and
completely different story.
yeah, oh yeah,
And
absolutely, especially with his
I,
military background, his architecture
mhm.
background, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
And I'm hoping they do right by both of them in the upcoming
Yes,
TV
that's
series.
that's the things that James Gunn he's getting past. He's just like, we're just gonna give you all of them. We got Guy Gardner coming up in Superman. We're gonna have a Lanterns TV show with Hal and John. Now all we need is Kyle, and then I'll be happy.
Yeah. Listen, they'll get to them. I mean,
Maybe I mean
I
he
don't know
seems to
how.
like Tom King's work, right? He's adapting the Supergirl
Mhm.
Woman of Tomorrow arc, so maybe he'll adapt the Omega Men story he did with Kyle as well.
Listen, you can't really go wrong with Tom King stuff, so I'm happy with that.
Well, I mean, some people
It
might
might
disagree
get
with
it.
you on that, but he's
Listen,
I,
I guess it depends. Depending on which Tom King stuff you're reading.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it'll get a little dark.
I personally I love Tom King, so I'm personally with you
Mhm.
on
I
that.
do
But
too.
I definitely know from my experiences on Reddit and all that there's some pretty fierce opposition to Tom King out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey Tom King, if you're listening and you want to come on and talk about it, I'm giving you an open invitation right now. I'd be more than happy to talk about it. But anyway, all right. So I think that's all I have to say about Blackest Night. Is there any other things you wanted to mention before we close up?
Um, I think we've hit everything. I do want to say the other character that this book made me get interested in, and I don't really understand why, because he's not in a huge amount of it. But for whatever reason, I got drawn to Dead Man, Boston Brand.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, since this book, I've just been a Boston Brand guy. Just because I like the way he was written. I think he's one of those weird, sea level characters that you're just like, what is this dude? And so just ever since I've been like, if I can get a Boston Brand, anything, give it to me.
Yeah. See, this didn't get me that interested in checking out Boston Brand stuff, but I do agree he was handled very well here. Like I definitely didn't find him distracting or anything like that, which a character like that can get sometimes. And
Oh yeah,
I thought Johns found a good balance on how to use him.
yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got in my notes too. I think we covered a pretty good bit of it.
Okay, great. All right. Well, Cass, thanks so much for coming on. And why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yep. You can find me on X, on Instagram, on Blue Sky. I'm at the Kaz Wheeler on pretty much everything. You check out my podcast, Didn't Get All of It Japan, for Japanese pro wrestling, and Ultimo Dragon Ball if you want to watch along and let's just talk about Dragon Ball Z Kai.
Okay, great. We'll have links to that stuff in the show notes. As for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website. We are superherocinephiles.com also on Blue Sky and Super Cinema Pod on Instagram and Threads, though Blue Sky is the best place to get in touch with me. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late, great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.